Hatha Day and many of God's blessing to all of you here this afternoon. The committee, this hearing by the Committee on Public Accountability, Human Resources, and the Guam Buildup is called to order, and by my watch, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. And I want to say for the record, in accordance with 5 GCA Chapter 8, subsection 8107, public hearing notices were sent on Monday, February 4th, 2019, adhering to the 5-day notice, and then a second public hearing notice was sent out on Tuesday, February 7th, 2018, adhering to the 48 hours prior. In addition, this hearing was noticed on the legislature's website. It was www.guamlegislature.com. I want to share with each and every one of you that written testimonies can still be submitted by emailing speaker@guamlegislature.org, or you may hand deliver to our office at 163 Chalan Santo, Papa Hagåtña, Guam. Joining me here, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon is my Vice Chair, Senator Kelly Marsh Titano, Doctor, I do apologize. The Legislative Secretary, Senator Amanda Shelton. I do have the Oversight Chair for OFB, which is Senator Jolson Augustine, Senator Tello Taitagui, the Minority Whip. I have Senator Clint Wright-Gel, but I also have joining us this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, coming up to the podium is Senator Jim Moylan. Dunklina Sizuas Masi, to my colleagues for being here this afternoon. I'd also like to note for the presence in the House, we see Vice Speaker Ted Nelson and Dunklina Sizuas Masi, Vice Speaker Nelson, for being here this afternoon. Nyot. Thank you. Please have this. Get seats going on the agenda this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, we will hear the appointment for Daniel Leon Guerrero as Executive Director for the Civil Service Commission to serve at the pleasure of the Governor. We will hear Bill number 30-35, authored by myself, Speaker Tina Rose Muña Barnes, which is an act to add sections 4302F1 of Chapter 4, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring that all private hospitals be covered under the Government of Guam Health Insurance Contract. And we will hear Bill number 23-35 by Vice Speaker Talina Cruz Nelson, which is an act to amend Section 4104B of Chapter 4, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the preference points added to applicants' scores upon applications for employment. And at this time, before I ask Mr. Dan to come up, I do see the, I'll go ahead and have you, Mr. LG, have a seat, but if you can come on up and have a seat. Just, I do know that you have some colleagues and have a lot of supporters here for you. I'll go ahead and call them up and have them speak first to present oral testimony for Mr. LG, and then I will ask at the end of the oral testimonies, I'll have Mr. Leon Guerrero speak. So at this time, I will note for the record that Priscilla Tuncat from Civil Service Commission, she was here earlier. I don't know if she came back. She did say that she came here early, wanted to show her support, and she was not sure if she would stay here because she had an eye appointment, but she wanted to make sure that I noted for the record that she supported you. I also have Rita Cruz.
Yes.
Hmm?
Rita Cruz.
Rita Cruz? Maria Masnayan, are you here to support or oral testimony just to support for the record? Thank you. I have the former chair, Louis Baza. You here to present testimony, sir? Please join Mr. Leon Guerrero. I hope I'm not murdering your names. Is there a Christine
Yes. Or just here for support.
here for support? Is that a Canata? John Calvo, you here to present oral testimony? Please, por favor. Mr. Paul Iangaro. Uncle Paul, please. How many more seats do I have there? I have Mr. Roland Farron. Please, are you here to present oral testimony? To support, thank you very much. And Miss Joanne Kennedy? Is that Kennedy? Is that here just for oral support? Ladies and gentlemen, if you need to provide oral testimony, please don't hesitate to come and check in with my staff. I have Mr. Cepeda, our committee director here. I also have joining us is Policy Committee, Stephanie Lorenzo and Sharak Bewani, to take in your testimonies if you wish to provide written testimony and don't want to speak. So at this time, Mr. Longuerero, if I may, I'll ask Mr. Louis Baza to go ahead and start, and then we'll go straight down.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, Senators, members of the Committee for Accountability, Human Resources, and the Guam Build-Up. It is with great pleasure that I, Louis R. Baza, the current chairman for Civil Service Commission, along with my commissioners of the Civil Service Commission, recommend Mr. Daniel D. Leon Guerrero to serve as the next confirmed Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission. As you are all aware, the Civil Service Commission plays a vital role in managing the merit system for the government of Guam. Mr. Leon Guerrero was a former commissioner for the Civil Service Commission who had taken his role and responsibility seriously and who has spent many long hours going over the matters presented before us. As a former commissioner, he brought to the table his knowledge and skills in the area of personnel management for the government of Guam and ensured that any decisions made by him was in compliance with laws and rules and the facts presented by both parties. As a former CSC staff member, he applied the merit system principles and practices with respect to effective documentation, progressive disciplinary actions, effective communication, and training in sexual harassment and EEO, equal opportunity employment. His 32+ years of service in combination of the Port Authority of Guam, the Civil Service Commission, and the Department of Administration Human Resources. His depth and breadth of knowledge, problem solving, and accountability in personnel management and the Haggai chart profile methodology makes him highly qualified as an executive director for the Civil Service Commission. Dan was my colleague, and then when I became a personnel administrator and then the executive director, he worked under my wings, and we were very busy, especially with the Hay methodology. That started in 1990. We spearheaded that, and it was successful until something happened later on in life in the government. I think his diversity, know-how, and the post-audit authority that we have, that Dan has got the ability to ensure that people are checking, people are put in check that we do have a merit system and people must adhere to the merit system, because at the end of the day, nobody is above the law. So with that, I want to reiterate that we fully support, the nomination for Mr. Daniel Guerrero to be the next executive director, and I thank you for the opportunity to make comments on Dan's nomination and hope for a quick approval, so that we can get this thing moving. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Mr. Cup.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and members of the 35th Guam Legislature. I came before you to support the confirmation of Danny D. Leon Guerrero as the Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission. I would also like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear before you to provide you comment of reference of Mr. Daniel D. Leon Guerrero on his professional and background and character. I have known Dan for many years, working together at the Civil Service Commission. As we all know, as I know, we both retired. Dan is an asset to the Civil Service Commission and throughout the government of Guam for following reason. He is very knowledgeable in the classification and compensation methodology, recruitment process, disciplinary and employee grievance appeal processes, Equal Employment Opportunity Act, American Disability Act, post-audit of unemployment personnel action, Mini-Hatch Act, and many other personal matters administered by the Civil Service Commission. All these personal matters are subject to personal laws and rules and regulations, policies and procedures. Dan has the knowledge and the know-how in the application of rule of law, as mentioned, and to carry out the mission, goals, and objectives of the Civil Service Commission. Dan is a very humble person, dependable, competent, and worked with employees and management during his employment with a career with Guam Port Authority, Civil Service Commission, and the Department of Administration. There's one thing that I know about Dan, well under my supervision. I was the personal administrator at that time. He will not compromise the merit system as mandated by the Organic Act of Guam and Guam laws. In closing, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, and 35th Guam Legislature, I hope that this body, within your power, confirm the appointment of Mr. Daniel D. Longuero as the Executive Civil Service Commission Director. Sizos Maasi, and I'm more than happy to respond to any question that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Calvo, if I may, can you just state your name for the record, where you're from?
Oh, my name is Juan K. Calvo.
Juan A. Calvo from retired, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Paul Yongara.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Senators, good afternoon. My name is Paul D. Leon Guerrero, brother of Danny D. Leon Guerrero, a Gulf Guam retiree from the Budget Office. When Danny first graduated and he came back to Guam, his first job was at Civil Service. That was at the old Red Cross building next to the Academy. And maybe none of you remember that, but it was just a small white building. After 32 years working at Department of Administration, Port Authority, and then back to Civil Service again, Danny retired 32 years later. Then he worked, like Mr. Cabo had mentioned, about 7 years as a commission member. I feel Danny is well qualified to protect the integrity of the civil service system for the employees and the people of Guam. Thank you.
Sizos Maasi, Mr. Paul. Mr. Danny, you can read your... Aye. Mr. Leongaro, if I may put forward, I'll have Vice Speaker Ted Nelson. He'd like to say something. Consigue, say now. Put forward.
I'm going to try. I'm going to try, Madam Speaker. Just excuse my voice. Sorry for being late. I live on Nabuni, so first let me thank you. Dunklo na Diyos mo kasi nesti na panidad ni pabigay gini pabi ajudas ti atong o. Tazay gini mas tumungos ti na tao gini na kwanto santigwa. Right? Yes. Madam Speaker, malagulo ko no isi magahaga. Nesti na panidad ni yapunta si Dan. I think he's the best choice for this position. And also, I would like at this point to recognize the familia. Madam Chairman, Madam Speaker, can you do that?
Yes,
To
definitely.
the people in the pub. Mr. Guamo. Anyway,
Mrs. LG is in the audience with us this afternoon.
Dan, this appointment is one of your most important positions in your life, to be director of Civil Service Commission. Nobody here has a background like what you do, what you have done. You are well educated from San Jose State, and your recommendation, your merits of awards, your performance, your achievement, Madam Speaker, if you look at the achievement of this young man, it's unbelievable. Outstanding, mauling, donklu, nabanisdu. Todo sa na achievement, todo sa na awards, todo sa na conferences, accomplishment. That kilo, good nabanisdu, but also civil service, but also commercial port. Pues tu me recordado za adani babisang ano na Civil Service Commission, a government Guam employees, they manay kumok. We gotta make them sita tanafang accountable empleado y gobyerno. Untungay politika na matulay ka after 18 years. There are 12,000 employees out there, Dan, that are looking in or questioning about their welfare and future. It's your responsibility as director to work with the board, to work with Magahaga and si Josh, to guarantee protection from harassment, guarantee protection from involuntary transfer, and all the other adverse action. Then, malago do da on emphasize keyboard manongyo na government Guam employees ni este sistema pago. Utsagias dito malaika. Ti Bali, i gobyerno, i Attorney General, umakokontra empleado without any help. This is not right. I tried, and I wasn't there for 12 years. And I worked with Kauda, Louis, and all the other. Manongyo, a government employee should be given some kind of assistance. Di sinambi, a custodian or a clerk, ni manoi adverse action, Prono po si mayor or si Berman, a higher attorney. Said, the director guides on a lawyer, kay attorney general. Ungan nay, upasa si ang mapedi, ang manggana empleo, umapasi lawyer. What I'm trying to say that, I'm Judy Manmagas. Look at the fairness. Look at the situation. If you're an employee, and pagkumpoblyo, manayo adverse action, intimidation, often you choice. Manayo 60 days, manayo put in the dad, pungko fangoni lawyer. Manabi, let's give our own employees that's Tauta, that's the classified employees, firemen, policemen. Tauta, they are classified. They're not appointed. They're not unclassified where they can be relieved or fired right away. So suggestions now, perhaps, then you can, Madam Speaker, Madam Chairman, and members of the committee, Hastafan, kusina i public defender, tanay un attorney, por representa i Governor Guam employees. Safanay, na para takon the attorneys, the director, they have all the resources, they have all the money against a poor Governor Guam employee who has no choice but to bow or fired and so forth. It is our duty to be fair. Be fair for the tautagaso. It hurts me. I've been with them for 12 years. I've been there many times, acting as an attorney. I think Chicago and many others have known them. I went there to represent, and there were cases where employees were completely intimidated by the Attorney General. And Gus Napiniti. Why do we treat our government employees, our classified employees this way? Why don't we give them the same fighting legal grounds as the director or administrator? By allowing one attorney by public defenders so that these employees, when they're in trouble, they can seek help financially and be guaranteed. We talk about civil rights, all kinds of rights. We talk about culture. We talk about vanidoso, respeto. It's about time. Iman magas, van man matavan. Then recognition in play out. This is not politics. I am not politicizing anything. All I want is that to give the employees. Another thing, Dan, every department should have an EEO. It's not their responsibility, and I'm facing all in civil service, está ni director, administración, ang gua, problemona, empleado, por favor, katsung, see whether it can be resolved by conference, talking, getting somebody involved. You should have, every department should have an EEO. EEO should be aggressively expanded with the power so that that individual can assist the employees to protect their rights as civil rights employees so that they can feel comfortable and not being intimidated. Spencer, we have to make this government 16 years, Kahu administration, Kamotsu administration. Some of them are even talking, say, what's this going to be now? You got a Democrat for 4 years. But we have to assure, and I use the word gatsum, I don't know why I gatsum, that instill among the employee that they are comfortable so that siya man mo tu pe chetsu. So matsogi chetsu niya without any fear di fan maonyo na patsogi o pa fan manladi po fan matransfer. No yung pibayao all the rights fangoni o true empleado for conferences. Our ultimate goal, Dan, if you can resolve all disputes, intimidation, harassment, all kinds of adverse action for the employees, it'll be better for the department. It'll be better for the department. That way, the other employees can realize that, hey, man, this is our government. This is our department. We're going to work hard. We're going to We're going to be dedicated, loyal, we're going to be efficient, and we're going to work with administrators, and we're going to work with the governors to guarantee the people of Guam that we will perform our utmost duties and obligations. You've been involved with the community, South Pacific, Pacific Games, Mike Kunishang Games. I know what it is. I was the first president, by the way, of the South Pacific Games. You don't know that. You have been track coach, my PE teacher too. So Dan and I have a very close relationship. And above all, he goes to St. Jude. And lami, Madam Speaker, audio mono pa St. Jude. Every Senador Gini, David Yuma, confirmed si Dan, per Director of Civil Service Commission. My dear people, and employee, and one of my senators, please help Civil Service Commission. Give them the money. I worked with them for 12 years. And I don't think all war. Louis and Dad, and all the other employees, Eloy, Governor Komatsu was my oversight. We work with them. And our ultimate goal is to guarantee protection for the government Guam employees. The firemen need help. Policemen need help. All the employees classified, they have to know that the Magahaga, the director, si George, Hago the speaker, the senador, si Dan, the board member, si Priscilla, si the Pomaspia, Peminaligtaw to Guam, Jo Majuda, empleado, Mona, gi oficina niya.
Si,
Am I up?
si Diyos Masi, Vice Speaker, for your written testimony. I mean, your oral testimony.
I guess I'll quit running on my head. But anyway, I want to don't look like that. But it also, like I said, I know this young man. He and I used to roam the street together. And you make one of the best directors Civil Service ever had. Right, Dan?
Si Diyos Masi.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Senators. Dispensa.
No worries.
My son. Thank you.
Sinamasi. Mr. Liangaro, you can proceed.
Half a day. Good afternoon, Speaker Tina Muña Barnes, Legislative Secretary Amalda Shelton, Senator Kelly Marsh Titano, Senator Joe S. San Augustine, Senator Therese M. Terlai, Senator E. Rigel, Senator James C. Moylan. Thank you for this invitation to testify in this historical, legendary legislative building. I come before you to seek your advice and consent with humility and honor to serve as the Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission. I earned a bachelor's degree in political science and minored in business from San Jose State University in 1977. That's quite some time ago. My career with the Governor of Guam extends 32 years in human resources with steadfast progress and dedication. I serve in 3 Government of Guam organizations, Civil Service Commission, Jose D. Leon Commercial Port, and the Department of Administration. In addition, I also served over 6 years as a commissioner, vice chairman, and chairman of the Civil Service Commission, presiding over adverse actions, grievances, political activities, Public Employment Protection Act, post-audit complaints, and EEO appeals and related matters. It is my great honor and pleasure to serve as the acting Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission. If confirmed by the legislature, I pledge that I will do my best to serve the people of Guam. This job comes with great responsibility and demands unequivocal honesty and integrity, which are the virtues that will be prioritized in the performance of my work. I will apply my depth of knowledge, experience, leadership, ethics, and impartiality in the performance of my duties and responsibilities. I'm committed to obey and follow all regulations applicable to the Commission, ensure fairness, justice to both management and employees. I will diligently work with the Civil Service Commission staff, Civil Service Commissioners, together with government departments and agencies to ensure due process. I will adhere to the timelines conditions recently established by Public Law 34-145 in handling adverse actions and grievances. It is my goal to ensure that more training is provided to improve the skills of the commissioners, the staff, and to create a prestigious environment that will be of the highest caliber for the government of Guam. In closing, pursuant to 4 GCA, Public Officers and Employees, Chapter 4, Personal Policies and Civil Service Commission, Article 4, Section 4405, Commission Staff, the Civil Service Commission Board appointed me to serve as Executive Director on January 15, and the Governor, Lourdes A. Leon Guerrero, approved my appointment on January 17. The 35th Guam Legislature's confirmation to appoint me to serve as the Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission is exclusively within your fundamental governance. I humbly ask for the legislature's advice and consent. Thank you for your consideration.
Mr. Leon Guerrero, before I ask my colleagues to share some questions and comments to you specifically on your appointment, I'd like to recognize Speaker Teresa Ariola. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here and joining us. Thank you. I mean, Terlahi. Sorry about that, Senator. At this time, my Vice Chair, Senator Kelly, do you have any comments or questions for Mr. Leon Guerrero?
Half a day. So I just wanted to mention it's very helpful to hear the oral testimony and read through the written testimony. It really helps us develop an understanding of the level of confidence and the many years that people have interacted with different people that are coming up for appointments. So I wanted to say Sejus Ma'asi for all of your time and for your testimony.
Thank you. Senator Amanda, any comments or questions for Mr. Leon?
Thank you, Mr. Leon Guerrero, for being here, and of course to your family and all of your supporters, and thank you for accepting the appointment, and congratulations. Of course, I wanted to say, based on all of the testimony and of course the support I see here, what I heard today, you have my support.
Senator San Agustin of OFB Chair.
Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Leon Guerrero, just a little bit off base. Is Paul younger than you?
No, Poe is my younger baby brother.
Oh, younger baby. Oh, because I remembered him in the Army Reserve. Anyway, Mr. Leon Guerrero, we met about a week ago and we spoke.
Yes,
and you know what, Mr. Leon Guerrero, I'm actually very thankful that you accepted the confirmation of the commission from Mr. Baza and the commission members. I know Mr. Calvo here. I've known him many, many years, and some of the staff that'll be working for you. I see Raul in the background there. He's like, put for boat, help Danny get in. You know what? And then you've got the governor's appointment, Mr. Leon Guerrero. I have full faith that you will do your job. And I honestly believe the civil service is there for the GovGuam employees, and I expect you just to fulfill that responsibility. And I look forward to raising my hand in support of your appointment. Thank you, sir.
Senator Terlahi.
Half a day, Mr. Leon Guerrero, and your family, and all of you who came to testify. Thank you for your testimony. A lot of the people who spoke, and there's some written testimony that hasn't been read into the record yet, but they all talk about your being fair and I appreciate that. I think your experience is going to go a long way to get the commission, and I share your goals. So I want to commend you on your goals of course, following all the laws and regulations, but to ensure fairness and justice. That is the goal of the Civil Service Commission, and sometimes people don't feel like it's justice because of the delays or just the hardship that they go through to get there. As the Vice Speaker Nelson was talking about, they have to pay for their own attorney in order to get through that process. It's a very difficult one, and so I very much appreciate your pointing out in your testimony that you will assure the timelines, and it's really the biggest role of the government, right? That's one of the things that we can do that makes a huge impact all across the board for the agencies and for the employees, and the more training for the commission. I think that's a great idea, and I want to commend you for that. And coming from the positions that you've come from, I agree. And we have an opportunity with a change in administration to just kind of reboot all the commissions and the boards to just make sure everyone's on the same page as far as training, making sure that anything that's changed over the years gets updated for all of them or any new ones. And so I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to a process that will be very efficient, as you've pointed out, and fair. So, Sidzuas Masi for serving in this capacity again.
Sidzuas Masi, Senator Tello Taitagui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I'd like to thank you so much for stepping up to the plate and taking this job. It's a thankless job, what you're doing, but there are a lot of us who recognize the hard work you put in, and I'd like to thank your family who's here too, because they are your rock, and they're going to come time because this is personal. The job that you have, you deal with a lot of emotions, and you're going to need that family support. And I know that you have it. Just seeing your brother here today, I know it just tells a wealth of knowledge and how great of a family you have, and that's appreciated. You have a wealth of knowledge. I'm very impressed with your resume. But one thing that's important, like I said, it gets kind of emotional, is that every time I've met you, Danny, and I've known you for a while, that you always had a great disposition about yourself. And that's what it's going to take for this kind of job. You're compassionate, and I've always seen that in you, and fair. So I wish you the greatest luck. And if there's anything we can do for you to help make things, the process a lot smoother and faster, especially, please let us know. We'll be happy to help you. And good luck. Thank you.
Sidzuas Masi, Senator Clint Rigel.
Mr. Leon, just I don't have any questions. I'd just like to say congratulations on your nomination. You appear to have a lot of good support behind you, and your resume seems to show that you have the experience necessary for the job that you've been appointed to do. So it looks very good for you. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, Senator Rigel. Senator Moylan, do you have any
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Leon Guerrero, thank you for accepting the position and serving our island. I'm really looking forward to working closely with you in the Civil Service Commission. So thank you very much, sir.
Sidzuas Masi. Mr. Leon Guerrero, I also want to note for the record that Maria R. Diaz, she's not here. She presented written testimony for your support. I want to just append that to the record. Also, Shane Nata, N-G-A-T-A, also provided written testimony, and want to say thank you to you, Mr. Leon Guerrero, for stepping up to the plate as I see your colleagues who've been with Civil Service Commission for many, many years, and I see Mr. Farron, Mr. Miller in the back, and I just want to say it just goes to tell that sometimes when you've been in an agency a long time, and you want to come back to continue to help make a difference, it means a lot. And as I see your family here, who I may have to disclose for the record is a part of my family, I want to say Undankaluna Sidzuas Masi, I see Uncle Albert and Auntie Bobby out there. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to give of yourself again, and for the nomination that was brought down for you from our Magahaga and our Segundo Magalahi because civil service is a very critical key component, and as it looks at the opportunities for our government employees fairly. And I think this is an avenue that is very crucial to the process when things need to get facilitated. And you've been a part of that team who's literally had a lot of the old guard of institutional knowledge and institutional process. So I want to say thank you for stepping up to the plate, and will disclose for the record that you will get my support. And I'm hoping that if there's anybody else who's listening to us, we do have session at the end of the month, and I'm hoping that if there's anyone who would like to provide testimony for or against, I'd ask that you go ahead and submit it to our office here at Santo Papa, but also to speaker@guamlegislature.com. And if there's no other oral testimony, I will call this appointment for Mr. Daniel Leon Guerrero being publicly heard and extended on Dunklunasidos Masi. Saina Masi. Have a good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You're very
to
welcome.
everyone, and including my family and all my supporters, and even those that don't support me.
There was nothing. Thank you, Mr. LG. You know what, I did say we may move Bill 30 before Bill number 23, but because I see some folks in uniform here, are you here for Bill 23 or Bill 30? Bill 23? I'm going to go ahead and ask, ladies and gentlemen, for Bill 23 to come up now, if I may have the sheet. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill number 23-35 as introduced by Vice Speaker Talina Nelson. Do you have a copy of the bill? Can I see it for a minute? It's an act to amend Section 4104B of Chapter 4, Title 4, Guam Code annotated relative to the preference points added to the applicant's scores upon application for employment. As I see some of the members from the Guam Fire Department coming up to speak, the author of the legislation had asked me to present and read her testimony here at the public hearing. She apologizes for not being here. She is presently off island and really wanted to be here but could not rearrange her schedule. It says to Honorable Tina Muña Barnes, Speaker, half a day, Bill number 23-35 COR is an act to amend Section 4104B of Chapter 4, Title 4, Guam Code, annotated relative to the preference points added to applicant scores upon applications for employment. The current law permits preference points to be added to applicant scores in both initial and subsequent applications for Government of Guam positions. However, my bill intends to permit the use of preference points for initial employment only. The purpose of this measure is to establish a fair selection process within the Government of Guam. The use of preference points for initial employment only was in the language of Section 4104B. This section was amended by Public Law 31-177, and the provision for use in subsequent applications was added to the Guam Code. This bill intends to limit this use to initial employment only. We provide the opportunity to use preference points if the applicants receive a minimum passing score or higher to improve access to government jobs. From that point on, the selection process for advancement should be fair across the board. Once one begins their job within the agency, there are opportunities for education and training that can be used during selection for promotions. Where there are several applicants equally qualified for the advancements within an agency, those that are also qualified will not have the opportunity to advance because they do not receive preference points. The employment selection process must be fair. Preference points may still be used for initial employment, but not for advancement. The Veteran Services section of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management also states, veterans' preference does not apply to promotion, reassignment, change to lower grade, transfer, or reinstatement. Again, this measure does not intend to diminish any person's experience or service. Its purpose is to establish a fair selection process for employment within the government of Guam. Sidzuas Masi. And at this time, I don't see Chief Joey St. Nicholas, but I understand somebody's going to read his testimony. Will that be you? Okay. And then Mr. Edward Artero. And is there a Darren Torres here? Please, would you like to speak on the bill? Please have a seat. We'll go ahead and start with you, sir. If you can state your name for the record and who you will be presenting for, okay, and where you're from.
Hafaday and good afternoon, Senators. I am Firefighter 1 Sean Mangronya, and I will be reading a written testimony from Deputy Fire Chief Joey St. Nicholas, who is currently off island. He would also like his testimony written into record. Hafaday Senators, I am submitting written testimony in support of Bill 23-35 and its intent to establish a fair selection process within the government of Guam. I am Deputy Fire Chief Joey St. Nicholas of the Guam Fire Department and previously held the Fire Chief position for the last 8 years. I am also a combat veteran with 20 years of combined reserve service in the United States Coast Guard and the Guam Army National Guard. With that stated, I come before you with the experience as a hiring authority for new employees, promotions, transfers, and other employee actions, and as an employee entitled to the preference points afforded by 4 Guam Code Annotated, Chapter 4, Section 4104B. It is unfortunate that the unintended consequence of Guam's departure from the original intent of the federal law affected many dedicated, highly educated, and experienced firefighters who continue to serve every day. The intent of the law was explained best by the U.S. Department of Labor. Preference does not have as its goal the placement of a veteran in every vacant federal job. This would be incompatible with the merit principle of public employment, nor does it apply to promotions or other in-service actions. However, preference does provide a uniform method by which special considerations is given to qualified veterans seeking federal employment. During the last round of promotions, many experienced, professionally trained, and highly educated employees were at a severe competitive disadvantage. 5 veteran preference points a service member can obtain for 180 days of cumulative military service dwarf the high merit scores obtained through many years of fire and rescue service. As a real-life example, a 4-year employee with the minimum professional certifications, a high school diploma, standard evaluations, and less than 3 years of military service beat an employee with 15 years of time in service who surpassed the minimum required professional certifications, had outstanding evaluations, and a master's in public administration. The 5 preference points he gained, albeit deserved, is a huge advantage where a 1/10 of a point can make the difference between eligible and non-eligible candidates. The original intent of the preference points was to provide for a smooth transition for those who serve their country to transition into civilian employment in honor of their sacrifice. Once a veteran is employed, they are now on an even playing field, and any upward mobility must be merit-based and competitive. The unfortunate irony of Guam's version of this intent devalued the service and sacrifice of our very own who sacrificed and put their lives on the line every day. Therefore, as an experienced manager and a veteran, I am in full support of Bill 23-35 to remove the application of preference points to subsequent applications for employment that include promotions, transfers, and other employee actions after the initial application for employment. In closing, I will always remain available to continue the forward progress of our organization and its mission. Sincerely, Joey C. Nicholas, Deputy Fire Chief.
Si Diyos masi. Mr. Otero?
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, fellow senators of the 35th Guam Legislature. I'm here today to offer my testimony in support of Bill 23-35. I feel this is a good opportunity to address an important issue that is kind of creating a divide or animosity amongst some employees across the board in all government of Guam agencies. Recently, several agencies have had several rounds of promotions, and those employees who weren't a service member, a guardsman, or reservist felt that the merit system didn't apply to them very well as far as upward mobility. When it comes to employer and employee laws and regulations, I know here in Guam we like to stand out and try and be on our own, but there's a lot of federal statutes, a lot of federal laws that should be looked upon to try and mirror or mimic or take guidance from what we can use to follow or have a baseline. The way it is now with the federal government, you can only use the 5 points upon initial employment. And the intent of the veterans preference is to help a service member get back on their feet, become a contributing member to their community and to society. And that was the whole intent of giving that veteran that 5 points. Once they become gainfully employed, they should go through the same merit process for upward mobility and have an equal playing field for those who choose to serve their country or their island community the way first responders do. So just to moving forward to help further support your bill or to help further support any subsequent actions or bills that are going to affect employer and employee rights, I think we should try and look first at what's already in place with the Fair Labor Standards Act, Federal Department of Labor, Office of Personnel Management. Even the U.S. Code has a lot of guidelines that we can base ourselves off of that before we try and make any sweeping changes to our island. And there's a lot that we can gain from just following what's already in place, and just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Si Diyos masi. Mr. Torres?
Good afternoon, Hafiday, Madam Speaker, and fellow senators. First and foremost, I want to thank you for giving a voice for all non-military, veteran, and guardsmen. I want to thank Senator Nelson for choosing to stand up for what I believe is right, even though I personally feel it's political suicide for her career as a politician. Our island is blessed with a great amount of people who sacrifice their lives by joining the service to serve our country. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them, and it's with great regret. I'm a firefighter with the Guam Fire Department and have been serving our community for the past 14 plus years. I've been assigned to the Advanced Life Support Unit for the past 8 to 9 years, which I feel is the most rewarding and passionate unit in the whole Guam Fire Department. Today, as I sit here writing, or was writing, it's with a great amount of disdain and heartache that I feel that this will divide a community. I have nothing but the utmost respect for our service members, and in no way, shape, or form is this letter meant to disenfranchise our service members. At what point I asked myself, a hard and dedicated working government employee, to say enough is enough. For the past 14 years, employees that have joined the military have affected my somewhat schedule, my days off, my ability to take leave, my ability to learn other facets in the fire service. Although this letter makes it seem like I'm complaining, Senator, it is not. I just want a chance for my voice and my hard work to speak on my behalf. Because of the law that was enacted in reference to preference points, that very chance was taken away from me. I was a part of the 19th fire cycle, who I am very proud to call my brothers. Just to shine some light on what happened in the promotion in 2017, Out of 27 individuals in my cycle, 9 were promoted to either firefighter 2 or fire lieutenant, and all 9 had preference points. The remaining 17 of us, do you know how many people got promoted? None. Do you know how many people were even able to use their voice? Not even one. Then again, the last individual, he joined the fire service in Oklahoma. Senator, at no point do I think that the 9 don't deserve the promotion, because they do. What I don't agree with is that they had a voice to show their knowledge, skills, and abilities to a panel for promotion. The 17 of us didn't have that. We didn't have the ability to fight with our voices, and it's because of the law that was enacted giving veteran preference points the ability to use it not only upon initial entry, but every subsequent application to the government of service. If 9 of my cycle mates were given the ability to fight with their voices, why couldn't I, Senator? Why am I not deserving of the equality because I didn't join the military? At the time of promotions, I felt like I was a second-class citizen who didn't deserve to be heard, Senator. Why was the very intent of the law not adhered to, just as it applies when the federal government uses it? Why does government of Guam shift from the very intent of this law? Why does it feel like the government of Guam is giving an advantage to members who voluntarily joined the armed service? From my understanding, the very intent of the law was to be able to honor and help service members in time. From my understanding, the very intent of the law was to be able to honor and help service members find jobs and reacclimate themselves into the civilian lifestyle. At one point in time, even the federal government, the Federal Fire Service, restricted or hampered their employees' abilities to remain with the armed service or even join. I feel the merit process that was enacted to stop this type of inequality has let individuals like myself down. The very process that is supposed to level the playing field and not give advantages has given an advantage to people who raise their right hand to defend our country. Well, Senator, I raised my right hand to defend our people and our island. I put my life on the line every day for the past 14 years. How does that not equate to someone who has served 180 days consecutively or cumulatively? How does someone like myself be competitive with those individuals? Not even my bachelor's degree, not even being nominated and winning AEMT of the Year, giving accommodation awards, life-saving awards, could help me. I have no option or recourse to be competitive with these individuals. Well, there's only one, and it's by joining the armed services, but how does that help individuals who can't or have been denied that ability? All I ask, Senators, is have a remedy for individuals to be competitive and let their voices be heard. By enacting this law, 23-35, Senators, it shows, and this was with reference to Senator Nelson, that being a military member, you have non-military members in your heart, and for that I will stand by you and support you. I plead with you, Senators, to make a tough choice that would definitely help with the morale of government employees. I ask you, Senators, to take a tough stance against this disparity, for it is already seen to some people that I am unpatriotic, which could be further from the truth. Thank you.
Mr. Torres, I do want to note for the record that I have received many testimonies, written testimonies, both for and against the proposal. I will make sure that they're appended and included into the committee report. And at this time, I'd ask my vice chair if she has any comments or questions.
Buenas and Hafide. Thank you for coming forward in what might feel like a difficult issue to be talking about in front of the public. But as we look through the testimony here, many support the same findings, and we have some opinions here as well, and some recommendations from the Department of Administration, which I think will be very helpful because we really do want to be giving recognition, but then also at the same time be making sure that we are upholding the idea of merit-based movement from there on. So thank you so much for your testimony. It is very important for us to hear, and it's important for the community to know these real-life situations that are causing these issues. Thank you.
Senator Amanda Shelton. Any? Senator Therese? Any?
Yes, thank you all for your testimony. I very much appreciate it. I know when we had a roundtable on this in the very beginning of the last term, it was a very difficult time because the promotions were ongoing and or had just been completed in many instances. So I didn't think people were that willing at that time to come out and speak about it. So I'm glad that you all did. All the points that you've made, I think, are very well taken on our side. And there's been commentary, and so in your testimony you pointed out that this bill would be consistent with the federal policy and with these preference points. And I understand, and I appreciate, especially the veterans who have also testified in favor of this bill. I think that's good to point out that you're taking care of your brothers and sisters in the fire department in this case. Their morale, their sacrifices just as much. So Sizos Masi to all of you.
Thank you, Senator Terlai. Senator Joe San Agustin.
Thank you, Speaker. Gentlemen, just to let you know, I understand most of you are not military, right? You're not military? You are, sir?
I served in the military for 8 years.
And you haven't? And you, sir, in the middle, Mr. Manglona? No. Well, I just wanted to express, number one, I'm retired Army, 26 years, and I agree with your testimony. What is right, what is wrong is wrong. The whole intent of the federal government was just to get you in, like Mr. What was your last name, sir?
Artero.
Artero? Mr. Artero. Battalion chief, no? Okay. And that was the original intent. And when I was in the service, I did a lot of the employer support and guard reserve. It was to help you get back on your feet. The military today is a voluntary service. If it was a draft, they'll still give you the initial support to get back on your feet. And here on Guam, we provide a lot of freebies to our veterans. We give them free driver's license. Any of them that are 100%, they get free registration. They get real property tax-free. They also have the edge on applying for SBA loans or pretty much most of the federal loans that exist. And last year I was approached by quite a few firemen asking me, where do we draw the line for the common man that was not given the opportunity or didn't have the desire to volunteer for the service? And with this bill, I understand where you're coming from, and that's the intent. But back then, my understanding, the reason why the law was amended was, unfortunately, might have been for political reasons. And I'm in support of this bill to change it. Now, if there's any other amendments that my fellow veterans out there and retirees want to confront me and ask me about it, I'll tell them, well, let's follow the merit system. Compete like everybody else. And if you don't, and like you said, you've served before, you don't have to continue serving to keep getting the edge over the other fellow GovGuam employees that hold up the fort while you're gone. Because when you hold up the fort, that means you're doing their part. They're doing your part. And let's share the pie and make it fair for everyone. Thank you, gentlemen.
Senator San Agustin. Senator Clint.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the major issue here I'm understanding is that you guys are asking for this just to not be, these points to be used in perpetuity, basically just use it for the initial employment and not to continue using it for points, correct? Are there currently any other types of preference points that you can get that you can use repeatedly for promotions? If anyone can answer.
To my knowledge, the application for government of Guam, there's the veterans preference, and then there's, I believe, a disabled.
Service disabled.
Service disabled.
For veterans.
Yes. I think those are the only two categories.
Okay. So, so there's also a category for service disabled veterans. Okay. Would this?
And that would only be for contracts for the
Okay.
government.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that, on disabled veterans being able to still have points and use them for subsequent applications?
I believe in my initial comment about for initial entry, it should be the same. Once they're gainfully employed, then the merit system should apply to just like any other employee.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to note for the record also, Senator Clint, thank you for that question. For the service disabled veterans, it's for contracts to the government of Guam. Yeah. Sijulis Masi. Senator Moylan, any questions?
Just a statement. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your testimonies. It's really informative. It does help in making the decisions. I've also heard similar comments from other agencies as well, judiciary to be included. So this is very informative. I appreciate that you came up front and made your testimonies. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sijulis Masi, if there are no other questions, I will note for the record that Bill number 23-35 COR has been publicly heard, and if there are anyone else who wants to present written testimony, they can do so by sending it to our address at 123 Santo Papa Lane, Nagano, Guam, 96910. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to be here this afternoon to present your oral testimony on behalf of this bill. Sainamasi. Bill 30. We're going to go ahead and proceed to Bill number 30-35, ladies and gentlemen, and to my colleagues. Bill number 30-35 was introduced by myself, which is an act to add section 4302F1 to Chapter 4, Guam Code annotated relative to requiring that all private hospitals be covered under the Government of Guam Health Insurance Contract. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to note for the record that it was my intent with this bill was simply to make sure that our Government of Guam employees and retirees are able to choose what hospital they can go to. In a life or death situation, the last thing that our people should be worrying about is which hospital they are supposed to go to. They shouldn't then have to worry about facing high costs for choosing an out-of-network hospital. I know, ladies and gentlemen, that many of our people have had to face these decisions. I know some of them are paying these high hospital fees at this time, and this is why I brought this measure back into the table. And being, having had to visit both hospitals in the last several months for both constituents and family, it really brought to mind the reason to reconsider and bring this up to the forefront. I understand the concerns of many of the stakeholders and what they have from a previous attempt of this bill introduced in the last legislature, but for me, this issue is all too real for our people and all too important to not find a meaningful solution to. I hope that through this process we can revisit this measure and come to a solution that will benefit our people. I want to say for the record that I would like to note that we are hearing this bill as introduced. However, the committee, our committee has drafted language to further amend the bill to clarify that this will cover Government of Guam employees and retirees, and the Government of Guam retirees. Additionally, we are considering an amendment to give the authority to the negotiating team to include both hospitals as necessary and as they deem fit. Again, based on conversation and based on the introduction, those issues were brought to the committee. With that being said, I would like to call up the first panel to testify. I do have a list up here. I have received some written testimony, and if they're not here, I'll go ahead and include them into the committee report. There is a Melanie Villarin. Is she here? Are you here? Are you just not in support, right? Okay. And Andrea Ang, would you like to present or not in support? Okay. Arvin Loho from Take Care, are you here to provide oral testimony? Please proceed to the table. Dr. Yun, would you like to present oral testimony? Please join us. I have Mr. Frank Campillo. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Felix Cabrera. Dr. Cabrera. And Mr. Eric Plinsky. I hope I said that right. If there's anybody else out here, you're more than welcome to sign in. And we will go ahead and start from my left, your right, and then we'll just work straight down. Thank you very much.
Half a day and good afternoon, Madam Speaker and members of the committee. I'm Arvin Law. I'm the Helpline Administrator for Take Care Insurance, and I'm here in that capacity. We have submitted a written testimony opposing the bill as it is written, and I'm here to just highlight some of the issues and a possible solution that we have included in the written testimony. Basically, there's three major issues that we've raised on the proposed bill as it is written. First, it's eliminate competitions and deny equal protection, and that's required under Guam law, specifically under 5 GCA section 50016 and 5265, and also under 2 GAR Division 4, Section 11025. Basically, right now, there's only 2 insurers that are offering under the GovGuam Health Plan, and Take Care is one of them, and if this bill is passed as it will eliminate Take Care and then ultimately eliminate competition. Second is it doesn't create a level playing field, and under Guam procurement law, it is required specifically under 4 GCA section 4302C2, and then it is evident as written in our testimony under Exhibit 1 that the private hospital charges different rates to different carriers, which again doesn't create a level playing field. And then the third point is this is going to be an improper delegation of authority, because if required, the private hospital can decide not to contract with an insurance company or offer higher rates, which thereby eliminates that company from being an offerer or making an offer, and also having the premiums not being viable, because the private hospital will now be the one deciding which rates they can offer to an insurance carrier. As a remedy to this, Take Care is suggesting that as an alternative to the bill that's being proposed right now is if the government could directly contract with the private hospital, either through a negotiating team or through the governors, including the fees that will be charged to any insurance carriers that's offered in the GovGuam Health Plan. And this actually, by doing this route, it actually creates equal protection, because everybody that's being offered will be treated equally and will have the same fee schedule. This is similar to the current arrangements which we all insurance companies have with GMH. Second is competition is preserved because everybody that's part of the GovGuam Health Insurance will now have access to the private hospitals under the same rates. Thirdly, it will also create a level playing field because everybody have the same contract provision and the same rates also. And then there's no improper delegation of authority. And lastly, GovGuam will be in the unique position to negotiate the best price for the government, its beneficiaries, and then will be in a better position to manage its healthcare costs. Since there's really no urgency in this issue, we are recommending or suggesting to the committee to move the discussion to the committee level to further discuss this alternative proposal or any alternative proposal with key stakeholders and find a solution that will not lead to any protests or any possible lawsuit. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nguyen? Just please state your name for the record, okay?
Okay, hi.
Full
My
name.
name is Dr. Nguyen. I'm basically testifying on behalf of Guam Medical Association, and also the most important thing is outpatient. You know, we got a lot of patients, a lot of select care and take care patients from Guam. And, you know, for the record, Eric, Dr. Cabrera, you know, we are not against the bill. Okay, we believe that, you know, GRMC should be on the bill, so that way my patient can have a choice within any hospital they want to go to. However, you know, I see a lot of my patients come in my clinic, and I tell you this is true. We have 46,000 patients, and we see every day that come in and they're really crying about the hospital bill. You know, GRMC provide a lot of care for our patient, but I tell you, every patient come in, they cry because the bill is so high. And you know, I mean, that's the part of having a hospital that is private, and we, whatever expense they have, they pass on to our patient. And you know, to me, at a certain point, there's a point that the government employee can afford the bill, and the GovGuam can afford the insurance. I would say that, you know, like I say, they need to be on the hospital list, but they have to have a lot of safety net somewhere there. You know, right now, there's not a lot of safety net. You know, when you put someone on the bill and mandate and for the insurance to provide the care for the patient, if you put anyone on that bill and mandate them to have it, I can charge anything you want, you know, and you have to have it. You know, Medicaid, MIP, you know, they have to follow up Medicare. Medicare passed a bill that required them to pay, you know, GRMC certain amount. Medicare is a federal program, and Uncle Sam can print money anything they want, but Medicare MIP, GovGuam have to match 60%. As the last the public health director was stated, you know, Medicare MIP be out of business in about 3 to 4 months, which they did. You know, no one can afford $5,000 a day or whatever amount that we pay for. And so at a certain point, you know, we appreciate the gesture of including so my patient have a choice, but really have to put a lot of safety net in here. You know, GMH, in order to them to raise the bill, they have to pass through the legislature to approve a certain fee hike. If not, they can just raise it. But for the private hospital, they don't have to do such a thing. If they want to charge you now $1,000 a day, and after bill pass, what's guaranteed they won't raise it to $4,000 or $5,000 if you don't put a safety net on it? You know, you have to put something, a limitation, what percentage that they can charge past GMH rate, okay? Or put a ceiling somehow that they can't charge more than that cost. You know, in the state they have hospital commissioner that, you know, keep an eye on this thing, make sure the hospital doesn't charge a whole bunch, you know, out of the sky. But in Guam, we don't have it. You know, we don't have a hospital commissioner. So any private hospital, including myself, when I go and negotiate with these two, you know, Frank and Arvin, I had to sit down and argue with them for the pay, right? I mean, but that's on the business table. But if you don't have any way to negotiate the fee, I'm telling you, all the tax in this room, everyone is going to pay much higher tax in the future. So at some point that, again, I agree with you that the patient need to have a choice, but we will be asking you for, on behalf of my patient and all the patient and Guam employee and retiree, that somehow, you gotta put a lot of safety net here in order to protect, everybody on the island. And again, Eric, Dr. Pereira, I mean, we really appreciate what you have. I just want to make sure that, everyone on the island can support and afford your care for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Campillo?
Thank you, Speaker. First of all, if I may, before I start, I'd like to, I never had the opportunity to congratulate Senator Taitano, Shelton, Rigel, Moylan, and welcome back Senator Tyree to the Guam legislature. And I really, truly hope that we don't have this many encounters, but anyway, I'm here today in my capacity as the Health Plan Administrator for Cabo Select Care to testify on Bill 3035. I'd like to thank the good Dr. Nguyen for taking care of thousands of Cabo Select Care patients. I provided written testimony, but I would like to read, and I also would like to add on certain parts of the testimony. Dear Speaker Muña, Barnes, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on the aforementioned bill. At the onset, we would like to share with you and the committee members that our company currently contracts with both civilian hospitals, Guam Memorial Hospital and the Guam Regional Medical City. We support all efforts to ensure that both civilian hospitals remain viable and successful healthcare entities, providing quality and financially sustainable healthcare services to our community. In fact, we are extremely pleased with the recent announcement made by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and Governor Lulian Guerrero on the reimbursement adjustment for GMHA. We feel that we are part of the revising efforts as we were contributors to a Guam Chamber of Commerce healthcare briefing that was provided to the former Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Shinky, which included the rebasing issue to GMHA amongst other healthcare issues. As you may know, we also previously testified against a similar type of legislation introduced by the 34 Guam legislature. Our opposition was based in our belief that private enterprises such as hospitals, clinics, and insurance companies should be allowed to negotiate agreements without government interventions or mandates. However, we further understand that the objective of Bill 3035 is to provide the government of Guam negotiating committee with the ability to negotiate the choices of networks available to Go Guam employees and retirees and include GRMC as a participating in-network provider for its health program. If this is the objective, we will then have fewer objections, as it will be no different than a private employer negotiating rates, benefits, and networks with a private health insurance. In other words, if a hotel A comes and tells me, hey, can you do me a favor, include Stanford University Hospital in your network and charge me, my answer is, I will do the math and I will charge you. We believe Bill 3035 will be better if it is rewritten or modified to ensure that the requirement to include all private hospitals is fully vested and left in the hands of the Government of Guam Health Insurance Negotiating Committee. By law, this committee is the responsible party in charge of negotiating health insurance benefits, networks, and rates on behalf of Go Guam employees and retirees. Therefore, the negotiating committee should have such delegated authority in a manner that is clear and allows them to negotiate medical benefits, network access, and rates. We believe that both the employer, which is Go Guam, and members, which are the employees and the retirees of the Government of Guam, should have the options and the ability to choose health plans and also medical networks. Incidentally, and in case that you didn't know, you already have agreements with GRMC. Go Guam is probably the largest customer to GRMC because you send your Medicaid and MIP patients to GRMC. So I question whether or not we can tell the Medicaid, which you pay for it, and MIP patients that it's okay to go to GRMC, but we tell the retirees and the GOGWAM employees that it's not okay to go to GRMC. From the health insurance perspective, of course, we have concerns. And of course, the concerns were some in the line that Dr. Nguyen mentioned. We are, of course, concerned with what could potentially become negotiating advantages for the new private hospital and the consequences of potentially higher fees. But this concern may be alleviated or mitigated by implementing safety nets, as Dr. Nguyen said, and requiring the hospital to either limit its cost increases to a specified and reasonable annual ceilings or be under a oversight committee or agency that could review what may be seen as unreasonable increases from them. This should be much in line with what already exists and is required from GMHA. A similar public oversight system could ensure that the public, consumers, and the health insurance industry are protected against high fluctuations and changes in hospital fees. We think that the above suggestions will make this legislation a better and more balanced bill. And please let me know of any questions that you may have, and I'll be happy to answer any that you may have.
Mr. Campillo. Dr. Cabrera?
What do they call him, Dr. Burke? You know, it's Cabrera.
Cabrera. No, she's saying Cabrera.
Oh,
right?
Cabrera, okay.
Yeah, that's over here.
Dr. Burke.
Good afternoon, Speaker Muña Barnes and distinguished senators. Thank you for having us here this afternoon. My name is Dr. Felix Tudela Cabrera, and I am an internal medicine physician and currently serving as the Chief Medical Officer for GRMC. I also maintain my clinical privileges at GMH. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill number 30-35. In my testimony, I hope to make the argument that this bill is essential to help support our people's fundamental right to have meaningful access to today's standard of healthcare. I was born and raised on Saipan. I never lived on Guam until about 8 years ago when I took a job after I was hired by GMH. Back then, I had just completed my medical school training and residency training at some of our country's most advanced healthcare systems. Adjusting to the healthcare system on Guam was a tremendous challenge, to say the least. All too often, it seemed like practicing medicine in a 10 to 20-year-old time capsule. To be clear, this is not an indictment of GMH or anyone in particular. This is inherent of practicing and trying to deliver quality medicine on a remote island. That's inherent with many disadvantages. But as a result, many of our island sick, most sick, had a very low ceiling of care within meaningful reach. Knowing firsthand the potential of what healthcare could be on the other side of this ceiling, but unable to provide it directly for my patients, was the most heartbreaking part of returning back to the Mariana Islands to practice medicine. Those of us who realize the existence of this glass ceiling and refuse to accept the status quo have been called to action in different ways. I believe this is the main driving force in GRMC's creation. Speaking for myself, it is certainly why 5 years ago, I took the opportunity to do my part joining GRMC during the very early stages of its opening. So back then, we had a blank canvas. And at that point, we decided to paint a bullseye right on that glass ceiling. And since opening 3.5 years ago, we've dinged, chipped, and in some ways actually broken right through that glass ceiling. And the truth is, we're only getting started. Some of GRMC services are considered state-of-the-art. However, our biggest impact by far has been helping raise the overall standard of care for the region. Standards that the average stateside community hospital takes for granted. It is these basic standards that we believe are a fundamental right our people deserve access to. Furthermore, it is our goal of reducing the radius one has to travel to get access to these services. God forbid, but if anyone in this room, or a loved one on this island, or any adult on this island, were to suddenly suffer a significant stroke or perhaps even a heart attack, their best chance of avoiding death or significant disability is care at GRMC. That's without question. And that's not a conversation about competition. That's a conversation about what's reality and what's available and what our people deserve. Regardless of your ability to pay, if you do come to GRMC by however means, needing such acute treatments found nowhere else on island, we will treat you. Note that if your insurance carrier does not have GRMC in network, you and your family will bear the financial burden. All because your insurance provider values their bottom line over your fundamental right to a timely, quality health care. An insurance provider denying meaningful access to GRMC is equivalent to denying meaningful access to what is now considered basic standards of healthcare for any developed nation. To say that cost to be treated at GRMC is an outlier in the industry is just plain inaccurate. The cost of providing the standard of care at GRMC is no more than the average for any comparable healthcare system within our CMS region. It is Medicare that has the principal influence on our costs. That is the truth that's not fully appreciated. State-side payers like the VA, TRICARE, TriWest, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, they all have us in network. They don't think our rates are unreasonable. In fact, most of our local commercial insurance providers already have us in network. Yet there's a single local insurance provider who has resisted true partnership with GRMC. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that this is a better example of what an outlier is. In summary, by supporting this bill, you're supporting Gov Guam beneficiaries' right to have meaningful access to basic healthcare standards. Look, it's not brain surgery. Sometimes it has to be, right? And unfortunately, when it is something this serious, we all have a duty to ensure it's provided with the best quality, the best access, and the best value possible. Our people deserve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cabrera. For the record, I'm hoping that you could give us a copy of your testimony so that we can include it to the committee report. It just make it so much easier.
Sure, I'll do
us.
that. I'll be happy to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Plinsky. I hope I said that right.
Plinsky, thank you. I'm just, Speaker and Senators, thank you very much for having us. I know one of the team was going to put up a slideshow and so we could have some visuals rather than just reading a testimony. So I know he's, I think, getting that set up now. I appreciate all of our colleagues from the industry sharing their thoughts and some, good valid points made. I would like to say I don't believe that the bill itself is trying to eliminate some competition from the bid. I think it was just more to encourage a health plan and GRMC to get together and get a deal negotiated so that more plans are involved with the bid for Gov Guam. So I don't think there was any intent to target a health plan and eliminate them from the competition. We've had a long history of trying to work with the health plan. I don't think it's any secret. Take Care is the plan. We all know what we're talking about here. We've gone back since the day we opened to try and negotiate with Take Care to have an agreement to be in their network. We've always wanted to be, but that's never been reciprocated. I do believe we've gone over 5 or 6 times to Take Care to try and negotiate arrangements. Not once did Take Care ever come to our hospital. I'm not sure if the executives, maybe they visited someone at our hospital, they've never come to see what we have to offer and to discuss things at our hospital. So that seems strange that over the 3.5 years that there's never been that interest. But the thing that I don't know if we have the slideshow up. There we go. We fully support Bill 3035, so that right off the bat we wanted to mention. You can go to the next slide. I think Frank had mentioned, and this is something to highlight, just a thought as was brought up by Frank from Select Care. There's approximately 43,600 Medicaid beneficiaries on Guam and another 11,000 MIP beneficiaries. That's totaling 54,600 people, our residents, all of which have access to GRMC. These are all paid for by Gov Guam health insurance plans. Obviously, Medicaid's got about a 55% federal match, and MIP is 100% locally funded. Well, there's about 28,000 Government of Guam members, which include the employees, the retirees, and the dependents of all these folks. So why should Gov Guam employees and retirees at this point be deprived of the same in-network access to the specialized services that GRMC has? That's a question we'd like to pose. Next slide, please. Some may ask, well, you know, why require GRMC and network and not, why not open the can of worms? Why not other hospitals off island that should be then required to be in network, or, you know, opens up a Pandora's box per se? Well, it's a big difference. First of all, off island hospitals are not exposed to the volume of, you know, really all of our island residents coming to use an emergency room. When the people go to an off-island hospital, for the most part, they're being referred there by their health plan with a pre-authorization to receive some care that may be not available on Guam. So it's all pre-planned, and the rates are usually already known and negotiated. There are cases of emergencies when people are traveling to a conference. However, the island plans already have network agreements with extended hospital networks such as MultiPlan and the Star Network, so that no matter where you're at, you can tap into this extended network and still get negotiated network rates. So that's usually covered. Now on island, where all the patients come through the emergency room, if they're not in network, they're now stuck with the entire bill, which is what's been financially devastating for folks. And I'm sure many of you know folks, family or friends that are affected by this. Next slide, please. Now, another argument might be, well, if you let GRMC be, you know, it states that a private hospital must be in the network, why not all the private clinics? Why not just say they should be all in network? There's also a very big difference here, and the biggest difference is clinics provide elective care and can actually turn patients away. Good example of this, many clinics on island right now do not offer services to Medicaid or MIP, and for uninsured or self-pay, they have a very high deposit requirement in order to receive the care, which many times the patient leaves because they can't make the deposit. At GRMC, when an emergency room, or GMH for that matter, there is no such barrier. You know, you will come, you will be served and treated. We don't even bring up the issue of whether you have a health plan or even have any money in your pocket. That is against federal law to even bring up in the discussion upon entry into the emergency room. All we're going to do is assess you and treat you, and the payment stuff comes later. So it doesn't matter whether you got any money or what plan you've got. So we can't turn away, and that's the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, EMTALA, that regulates that. Now, ambulances take patients to the closest hospital for life-threatening emergencies regardless of where the patient wants to go or what health plan they have. I'll give you an example of this. I myself, on many occasions, one specifically stands out in my mind where I get called down to the emergency room. We've got a volatile patient. The patient arrives in the ambulance, fire department brings them. The team at the fire department tells us, man, this one's a tough one. You know, they've been cussing and swearing at us all the way here. Patient's having a stroke, assessed, preliminary assessment, patient's having a stroke. They had a health plan without us in network, so they knew, you know, they're gonna have a financial consequence. They don't wanna go to GRMC. Unfortunately for them, the medical transport team has no regard for about financial issues. Their regard is life and health. And we're getting you to where someone, you know, closest place or this place that has a service that can save you. So they disregarded the patient's request. They bring to GRMC. Now they're cussing and swearing at all of our doctors and nurses. Meanwhile, going through the indications of a stroke. So we had to explain to them, you know, that what we're doing is trying to save their life. Please calm down. You know, we will worry about any bills, things later. You know, and family members have to intervene. You know, this is not an outlier incident. This happens frequently, a lot. Other patients and all families in the emergency room are listening to all of this, so this is common. This also happens up on the patient floors, you know, in regular inpatient rooms when patients have to be admitted to help, you know, continue their care. Another thing, there are only 2 civilian hospitals on Guam, and GRMC has several life-saving services that neither GMH nor U.S. Naval Hospital have. So for that reason, there's many patients are brought to us. And another thing is that GRMC is actually the closest hospital to most people on Guam, where they live. Next slide, please. As we can see from this graphic, where the 3 hospitals are kind of placed with little red dots, GRMC furthest north, approximately 60% of Guam's population lives closest to GRMC, and it might actually be a little more than that, but when you look at how the roads are and how ambulances will take patients, that's basically how it works. And we realize that the fastest growing population is in the north. As the buildup happens, we're talking about a new power plant, a power authority. There's going to be even more, population growth to the north at GRMC's doorstep, where people will likely end up going because it's the closest hospital. Also, nearly all U.S. Naval Hospital on-island transfers go to GRMC. So when the patient is really ill, the civilian can actually get into Naval's emergency room, but once they stabilize, then they send them out, and nearly all of those patients go to GRMC. So that covers a lot of the south side of the island, after stabilization at Naval Hospital. And then the majority of early recognized brain, cardiac, spine, and stroke emergencies go to GRMC no matter where the patient is on island. Doesn't matter if it's closest or not. The reason being is we have the resources, both equipment, technology, and the specialized team to do interventional procedures, not like stabilize them for an offline transfer. We go in and attack the stroke or the cardiac event and prevent it from continuing, or or actually reverse it, if it's already happening. We have the procedures and the team to do that. And so that's why it's so important, we feel, to have us in network so patients can get that care and not have the financial burden, after the care. I'll tell you one quote that came from a patient we saved from stroke, and really no one, including their family, felt they were going to make it. And today they're back to work, they're normal, you wouldn't even know the quote was, "I wish I would have died," because what this has caused for me now, because I have all this bills at list price and no negotiator, and it's caused such a strain on the family, I think, trying to sell land and other issues, that they wish they were dead. Can you imagine that? Those are the things we have to deal with, every day on the front lines with the people we're trying to help save. Next slide, or actually I think, yeah, that's it. So let's take a look at the numbers a little bit. We looked at the history in 2018 of what we could tell as GovGuam visits to our hospital by all three plans that serve this population in 2018. It was Net Care, Select Care, and Take Care. So we got visits by the type of service: specialty clinic visits, emergency room visits, outpatient, and the emergency room is just the in and out cases. Some that emergency room get admitted, we call that inpatient. So you can see there were over 5,000 visits. Billed charges at list price over about $30 million. Okay, now the $30 million would be appropriate if you don't have a network agreement, because list price is your price. But many of those folks did have plans with network negotiated rates. Now the thing is, if an exclusive contract is awarded to a plan who does not have GRMC and network, then those bills would be all in the patient's laps, and it would actually be much higher likely, because GRMC is about to launch another 37 beds in medical telemetry for the heart patients and surgical for surgical patients, because you're probably aware we gave up maternal child health services because we felt that we were competing in this with GMH, duplicating costs and efforts, when it seemed better if one hospital, and they were doing a great job, they actually deliver more babies than we do every year since we opened, if they could focus on that, and then we would stop competing, and then they are also looking at specialized services that they may not dabble in, let us handle that, so we can reduce the cost, doubling costs. Now imagine if you're doing that, but one health plan won't put us in network, and the specialized care is coming to us, you're further exposing all of your government employees and retirees, all their dependents, of that out-of-pocket risk. And that's happening right now, 37 beds in the next 2 months. So those visits for that kind of adult care will grow. Also, it's important to know that GovGuam members foregoing care they could receive at GRMC may be placing their own life or health at risk as a result of waiting to go off island. We have many cases of this happening. We have many patients who come in and want to get out of there right away before we can do a procedure. We had one patient who was admitted for a spinal injury. We could do the spinal surgery with our neurosurgeon, but they wanted to get out of there because they knew the cost, they were going to incur. So they, I believe they discharged what's called AMA, against medical advice. to try and get off island to get the care elsewhere. Now they couldn't get right away, they had like passport issues and some other things, so they went home with a spinal, the risk of paralysis is high. But these kind of decisions are being made because of financial issues, not because it's in the best interest of their health. And there's many reasons, for delays of getting off island, like passports, also the expenses. A lot of times the health plan may only cover up to $500 for just the patient, but no nurse escort expense. If you're in a stretcher, you're at risk of maybe having to pay for 9 airline seats, because if you're in a stretcher, the airline needs to block off 9 seats that they can't sell, and you may or may not get help with that from your health plan, but it's very stringent. So, on top of your health bill, can you imagine spur of the moment purchase of 9 seats on an airline to get off island? Huge financial burden. Next slide, please. All right, this is a quick sample of what it looks like to be in-network versus out-of-network. Just looking at a GovGuam 1500 plan. In-network, you have, of course, your $1,500 deductible, which a member must pay before your health plan benefits kick in. Then out-of-pocket annual maximum. This is critical for those worried about this high cost of prices to the patient, which we don't believe really is the case, because the out-of-pocket annual maximum means you pay no more than $1,500 out of your pocket for your co-insurance, your co-pay, and if you hit that, then your health plan is going to take over and pay 100% of any medical costs for the whole rest of the year. Now, if you're out of network, it's a whole different story. And you have unlimited out-of-pocket annual expenses, as well as a $3,000 deductible before any reimbursement starts taking place. Patient payment to the provider. If you're in network, all you have to do is pay your applicable deductible, co-insurance, or co-payment based on your negotiated rates from your health plan. If you're out of network, you pay the entire bill and you don't have any negotiated rates, so you are paying list price. Finally, health plan reimbursement for out-of-network visits. Contrary to popular belief, you must pay the whole bill up front to the provider and prove that you actually paid it to the provider with receipts. According to health plan member handbook, you can find them online. And then, to make matters worse, you have to do all this in less than 90 days from your discharge date, or else you may not be eligible for any reimbursement at all. Keep in mind that a hospital does not bill a patient the day they're discharged from a hospital. It takes time for coding, doctor's notes, several softwares from radiology to get assemble the record. It could take up to 90 days to actually get the patient their bill. So if you got the bill on the 80th day, and I'm going to show you some numbers of what the costs are, you would have literally 10 calendar days to pay the bill off and then get all of the other required documents, your medical records, your claim forms, your itemized bill. I don't know what else is required, along with all your receipts, get them into the plan before the 90th day, or you're not eligible for any reimbursement. If you do meet all those criteria, guess what? The grand prize is you can receive a reimbursement based on 70 to 80% of eligible charges, not billed charges. You're going to pay billed charges. Eligible charges are determined by the health plan and usually reference the lowest possible reference rate, like Medicare rate, lowest negotiated rate of a network, and then you have to pay the entire difference between the billed rate and whatever they reimburse. So go to the next slide, please. This gives you some real numbers. We use you can see on the left the number of visits. The average list price we've looked at for a list price for clinic visit, emergency visit, outpatient visit, and inpatient stay at GRMC 2018. Those are list prices. $34,000 is the average list price for a stay at GRMC in 20. Some patients stay longer, some patients stay shorter. That's an average bill at list price. So if you could go to the next slide, please, you can see what the actual patient would pay in-network versus out-of-network. Now, in-network in a clinic doesn't matter, we get the negotiated rate with a health plan, but what's the patient pay? They have, if they're in-network, they just have a $40 fixed co-payment. So that's all they're exposed to. If they're out-of-network, the whole bill. So $40 or $1,413. Emergency, you're going to pay 20% of the eligible charge. In network, the eligible charge is the negotiated rate. Out of network, it's whatever the plan decides, but you have to front the bill in full. So it's about $195 if you're inpatient. I mean, if you're in network, it's about $1,948 if you're out of network. And then the same with outpatient, but look at the inpatient. So if you're in network, what's the most you're going to face? Obviously, we're assuming at the top you've met your deductible of $1,500. If you're in network, you have a $1,500 max payment you're going to owe. Not only that, once you've hit that, you're not going to pay anything for covered services at any provider the rest of the year, the rest of the plan year. So that's your out-of-pocket annual maximum. Out of network, you're going to pay the entire hospital bill for that stay and any other stay you have for the rest of the year. So the difference is dramatic. It's huge financial risk and consequence of our GovGuam members, whether they're retirees, employees, or dependents, of being out of network. It's important to note that GMH does not offer discount rates to health plans. List price is the rate. GRMC offers substantial discounted rates to health plans, and so when our health plan keeps quoting that, you know, GRMC's rates are so much higher than GMH, what they're comparing in some cases is really in all cases, list rate versus list rate. But if you're not comparing what's been proposed as negotiated rate against list rate, that's like apples to oranges. You know, and in many cases, GMH list prices are are higher than GRMC negotiated prices. I could check. So it's a mixed bag. Some GRM prices are lower than GMH after negotiation. Some are about the same. Some are higher. But by no means, the way it's been stated in the media, that GRMC's prices across the board, list price maybe, but that's not relevant. What's the negotiated price that's been offered? And we've been open to negotiations for 3.5 years with the one plan who hasn't put us in. And I think that's that slide. So next slide, please. This is the last bit. So this comes right from a member handbook of the health plan. These are key things for the patient to know. It clearly states, you know, at the top paragraph, when a participating provider treats you, that provider will submit a claim to the health plan and they'll pay it. However, in yellow, if you should receive treatment from a non-participating provider, you will need to pay for the services and seek reimbursement from the health plan. It's real clear. You pay, and then if you paid, you can try and seek reimbursement. Next slide. The next paragraph points out you are required to submit a completed deductible reimbursement and out-of-pocket member claim form to the health plan along with original receipts and all required documentation stated in the form. Pretty monumental paper shuffle here that you got to do. Go get your medical records. Go get your itemized bill. Go get claim forms. Get all the receipts, prove you paid the bill. I hope you have the money. Next slide. By the way, you need to do all this in less than 90 days from your discharge date. Even if the provider, us, gets you the bill on the 80th day, clock's been ticking, you know, it's your problem. And if you don't, you'll see right there, a member's failure to submit a claim for reimbursement to health plan within the 90 days from the date of service will result in a denial of the claim. Many people in Guam have found out this the hard way. They even paid their whole bill, but they couldn't do it within 90 days. Might have got a loan, might have got family. I'm so sorry. You seem to be out of luck. You're on your own. All reimbursement, final slide, please. All reimbursement amounts. So if you pulled all that off, if you did it all, it's tough, but you got it in 90, you paid it all off. All reimbursement amounts from non-participating providers will be based upon health plans' eligible charges. That's a key word there. Eligible charges is another word no one really knows about. By no means is it billed charges. That you pay billed charges if you're out of network. Eligible charges are defined by the plan. They come up, they usually don't publish any of this. They have their reference rates. They look at that reference rate, and then they usually say 70% of whatever they reference, Medicare rate maybe, that'll be what they'll reimburse you. They don't care if you paid $10,000. If their reference rate's 1,000, 70% of 1,000 is 700. Here you go, and you eat the difference. So that is an extreme difference between a billed charge that you had to pay. Those are the key things we'd like you to know. We support this bill. We hope that this bill can pass because we're waiting to sit and reasonably negotiate, and the kind of negotiations we're willing to do is the same we've done with every other plan. And we have all three other local Guam plans have us in network, and we've had contracts with them since we opened. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eric. For the record, we'd like to see if you can give us a copy
Yeah,
of
we're
that
going to give you our
presentation.
testimony written and
our
the
colleagues
PowerPoint.
would like to know if you can have them emailed also
Yes.
to us.
Thank you.
Would appreciate it. Thank you. At this time, I'd ask my vice chair if she has any questions or comments to the panel.
Hafide and Sudus Masri for allowing me to tackle this. So I want to thank the speaker and the others here, those that are testifying and fellow senators that are here listening, in bringing light to this issue. It's such an important issue, as you all know, and it's particularly worrisome from the community perspective. It's a quality of life. It could be life or death, is what we feel. And part of what we need to consider, and what I need to continue looking at further to feel like I have a better handle on this, is looking at how to balance things out. We do have conditions like being in an island here together. That means that there are certain things we can't drive to another state, we can't drive to another county. We have the conditions that we do, and we have 2 hospitals. And right now, the minutes apart that they are and the differences in their specialties or equipment can make a real difference. But that being said, there does need to be something in place that helps us as a community balance out the hospitals so that we, as much as possible, have access to both. Both are providing for our care, and we're having healthy competition, but also supplementing each other, if I'm saying all of that correctly. One of the things that I do worry about a little bit, but I think that there are solutions for, is whether there could be an advantage given to one side or the other if there are requirements, but we have had suggestions about having oversight committees or certain other safety nets there, and so I think that this could be managed. But I do think it's important that we're looking at our health care all together and that we're providing as much access as possible for our community to what we do have, and are making sure that the hospitals are helping keep each other healthy, and not bringing one down to the detriment of the other or to the community at large. So with that, I did want to clarify, maybe I missed it, and so I apologize if I missed it. Mr., is it Flinsky?
Plinsky.
Sorry.
Don't worry, everybody mispronounced it.
What is your position? I missed that.
Oh,
somehow.
yes, thank you. I'm Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Guam Regional Medical City.
Okay. And so, with all of that being said, like I said, I feel like I need to continue to look at this further. I want to read through the testimonies again and do some additional research. But I thank you for what you've brought forward, and I'll pass it on to others who may have a question.
Si Diyos Masi, Vice Chair. I also like to acknowledge the President of Senator Luis Muña. Thank you, Senator Muña, for joining me. I go ahead and yield to my the Oversight Chair on Health, Senator Teresa Lai. You have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Senator Tello.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Speaker. You know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what your first name, your name is.
Arvin.
Arve?
Yes.
How do you spell that?
A-R-V-I-N.
A-R-V.
V-I-N.
RV. Okay. So RV, you represent Take Care, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you go to negotiate with Take Care and clinics, doctors' offices, GMRC, I mean, not, well, you haven't been doing GMRC, but GMHP, places like that, you go there to negotiate prices, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'm sure that the other insurance companies do the same. Is it basically the same amount of costs they offer you that they offer other insurance companies?
Well, no, I cannot speak about the other health insurance companies, but we normally do some baseline comparisons, some benchmarking when we negotiate with different clinics and facilities, because we want to also make sure from the perspective of our members that the rates that we will negotiate will somehow be close to what we currently have now or what we're paying. Because when we negotiate with other facilities or clinics that are much more higher than what we have, then that will also translate to a higher cost for our members to the increases in their premiums.
So you also negotiated with Guam Memorial Hospital, right? And came up with a price that's conducive to your mark, your rates, correct?
Well, that's what I was mentioning earlier. Right now, what we have with the Guam Memorial Hospital is all the insurance carriers have the same contracts and the same rate. So that's very level. And that's also something that we've been working on as a group of carriers with CHC at Saipan.
Okay, so why is it that Take Care did not negotiate any rates with GMRC?
I would respectfully decline to answer that question, ma'am, because that's something between us and GRMC. I don't want to comment on that.
Okay, just wanted that. Then GMRC, your Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements, well, the way I understand it is that your rates, based on Guam Memorial Hospital's rates, they're quite substantially different. So you can go into Guam Memorial Hospital, into an emergency room and pay price at like $1,600. But you can go to GMRC and that rate for the same service is about $5,000. So when you have MIP and Medicaid go to your hospital, then the rate of reimbursement that we have to fork out is substantially higher. Is that correct?
Senator, thanks for the question. When we talk about the government reimbursement, particularly Medicare, Medicaid, and MIP, it's based on the fact that we're a TEFRA hospital from the eyes of the U.S. federal government. It's a totally different reimbursement system than traditional private insurance, which has been fee-for-service, where you have a list price and then you have a discount rate. In TEFRA model, your Medicare, particularly their intermediary Noridian, looks at cost reports both GMH and GRMC submit every year, and they come up with a daily per diem rate that's an all-inclusive rate for what would be called the facility charges. So they don't really care what your rate is that you're billing them on the claim forms. The rates don't matter. They don't really care. On the inpatient side, they just look at what was determined to be your costs and what's the determined cost per inpatient day, and they reimburse you that rate. Now, when you look at the costs of GRMC versus GMH, why would some of the costs be higher? Well, there's many significant investments that GRMC has that maybe there is no MRI at GMH. GRMC has one of the best available on the market. We have a linear accelerator to treat radiation cancer. That alone was $4 million by itself, the biggest price machine in our hospital. So they don't have a linear accelerator at GMH. In the operating rooms, we have C-arms and, just some of the best equipment in the world. We've had even vendors come to us to see what we have, and we haven't seen anything like this except for research hospitals. So we have invested, and there's reasons why the specialists we have to do some of those services are also much higher priced, than a general surgeon. So there's many different costs, and obviously real estate and building, that why our rate is higher in terms of a cost reference than GMH. But that's different than the list price and what they pay, because that's not generally how they do it.
Okay, thank you for that answer. With Select Care, right now you currently cover GMRC, right, in your program?
We have an agreement with GRMC.
And that
yes,
you cover.
Senator. Yeah.
And if this bill were to pass, do you see, because you already cover them right now, do you see any substantial increase?
So backtrack a little bit. In my testimony, Senator Tello Taragui, I said that one of the concerns of the industry has been that when you give a little bit of a advantage to, of course, the provider, that could happen. Now, we also see that on the other side of that coin, you could balance that by asking GRMC to ensure that they have limits as to what their increases annually will be, provide oversight over GRMC. But if I can backtrack, for instance, in regards to the reimbursement that Medicare decided to give GRMC, I'm one of those that believe that because that cost is passed to you, Medicaid, I'm one of those that believe that because the federal government increased the cost for Medicaid, that you can possibly go back and argue to the federal government, hey, you got to reimburse me for that extra cost that you, on your own decision, decided to increase the Medicaid system in Guam. So, but back to answer your questions, Senator, first of all, during the time that we have a relationship with GRMC, clearly the relationships between providers and insurance company are not necessarily the best all the time. We go to lunch, but we sometimes hit each other on the head, a little bit when we negotiate. At the end of the day, what we ask is that companies that do business on this island put together the best step forward and realize that whatever they do is going to impact the rest of the community. And we hope that they are level-headed enough to realize that if they increase their rates too much, that they're not going to have providers to support them, and that the community may not be able to support them. So there are balancing factors that we have suggested to include in the bill. And in regards to us, we have a relationship, and we had one for quite some time now. I think that Polanski, Plinsky has many bumps in his head, but for the many times that we go and negotiate with him and make them realize that they got to be contributors to the community and that they cannot increase the cost too exorbitantly, because then the community won't be able to support or afford them.
Okay.
Did I answer your question, Senator?
Well, no, the question was that since you already cover them, and if this bill should go through, does Select Care plan on increasing their premiums because of that?
Well, if the rates are maintained as we currently have,
then fine.
Evidently, well, premiums are as a result of many other different factors. But if your question is, if we had the same utilization today as we have last year for GRMC, and if the same people went, if the same people had the same illnesses, will this bill increase your rates? And I said, if they leave the rates for the same type of utilization, for the same length of stays that happen, it should not. But rates are reflective of many other factors. For instance, as I shared with you, prescription drugs have gone through the roof. As you know, most of the Democratic Party has now gone on the record to say insurance companies are no longer acceptable in the future. We're going to have Medicare for all. So it all depends. Healthcare is many factors. In fact, I'm one of those that happens to look at all of these statements that are made sometimes and go like, but you control the increases. You control, Congress can pass laws that will stop increases, in prescription drugs. You guys can control what these guys increase if you wanted to do that, so you have in your hands powerful tools.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to you, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here to clarifying something. And okay.
Thank you, Senator Ted. Senator Clint Rajah, any questions? Senator Moylan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate that this bill specifically addresses the government of Guam employees, retirees, and also their families. As you mentioned, it's over 20,000 members or subscribers. It's good that we're talking about this issue now, since our GovGuam contract is coming up again in just the next few months. We'll be discussing the renewal of the Government of Guam contract for FY20. This is going to have probably a great impact depending on where the discussion goes further on this. But right now, from what I understand from our DOA director, Mr. Burns, the current negotiating contract is over $90 million. So hopefully, like Frank, you were saying, we make some good decisions up here because we got a lot of power in our hand. But we're going to be listening to you a lot more and making sure the right decisions are made. But thank you very much for your contribution. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. I understand the Oversight Chair. Senator on Health, Senator Chala, you have a follow-up question or a question?
I guess I just wanted to see if I could elicit further response from, thank you all for your testimonies, very helpful, and for the time you've taken to make these points. I guess I'm comparing last year's bill, or the bill introduced in the last term by the former speaker, and this bill, and they look identical to me. But the testimony, I mean, it's slightly different, and I understand that there's been changes made to the GovGuam procurement in the interim. And, but maybe you can just clarify, Mr. Campillo, particularly this line in your recent testimony. Well, I guess, Dr. Nguyen, you were adamantly opposed to the bill last time. So were you, Mr. Campillo. And this time, I guess, your testimony is, I don't know, I would classify it as less adamant, but saying that the government of Guam has the ability to negotiate the increased rates or against increase in rates. But I don't necessarily see that in this bill. I mean, it seems to be that you're hoping that that's going to happen, or that you're saying if you put it at the negotiating team, we can make that happen. But I'm not sure that's very clear in this bill. You have a line in your testimony, Mr. Campillo, that says, we further understand that the objective of Bill 30-35 is to provide the Government of Guam Negotiating Committee with the ability to negotiate the choices of networks available to GovGuam employees and retirees, and include GRMC. But this ability to negotiate the choices of networks seems to me, I guess, doesn't this bill take away that and mandate that GRMC is included? And it's not really I mean, we're going to negotiate other things, but whether they're included or not after this bill, it seems to me it's not something to be negotiated. Is that your interpretation?
Thank you, Senator. Well, what we are suggesting is to delegate it properly to the negotiating team, no different than some years ago when the negotiating team actually negotiated a health plan. We used to have a health plan that the off-island care was limited to only the Philippines. So give the tools to the negotiating team, but when you leave it in a manner that somebody else can interpret something different and be able to challenge the process, then you also are not helping the process. I believe that this bill can be improved in a manner that you give the tools to the negotiating team to be very clear, to be very specific, and to ensure that, yes, they do have the mandates to be able to negotiate as they currently do. They negotiate fees, they negotiate rates, they negotiate benefits and services. For instance, some years ago, they decided that we wanted to include hyperbaric oxygen benefits as a service. Well, there is only one company in Guam that provides that. So clearly, already the negotiating team made those decisions, no different than today. For instance, if I go to a hotel and they want me to either include or exclude a provider or include and exclude an off-island benefit or service, I can possibly do that. I will give the choices, and that's what I'm asking the committee to do. Give the choices to the negotiating committee. Give the tools to the negotiating committee. Give actually the choices to your employees and retirees. Don't negate the choices from them. Already, like I said earlier, you, the government of Guam, and I saw the slide that Eric put up, have already over 50-some thousand members that belong to your MIP program and your Medicaid program that have access to GRMC. If they have that access, why is it that your employees and retirees couldn't have that access? So, yes, but give the choice and give the ability to the negotiating committee. That's the reason why we're saying, please amend the bill and give that mandate to the negotiating committee.
Please amend the bill so it's not
correct.
Not in its current form. Is it doing what you're recommending that the government of Guam does?
Correct. And what I heard the speaker at the beginning of this hearing was that they were looking
Yes.
at amending the bill in areas that could improve the bill. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
All right.
As noted.
All right. Yes, Dr. Nguyen.
Yes, Senator Talagi, but the difference in last year bill and this year bill is that last year bill, the bill doesn't mention just one insurance for Gulf Guam. That's mandate for everyone. They have two insurance that can provide Gulf Guam health insurance. But this bill is limited to one Gulf Guam insurance. So, you know, when we changed decision from last year and not supporting the bill and this year supporting the bill, and the only thing we asking for as a physician is that, you know, make sure that you have limitation, make sure you have clear, acceptable level that, you know, you won't be surprised that, you know, GRMC will raise the rate. You know, just like the federal, the Medicare and Medicaid. You know, and Medicare, like I say, can do anything they want. But Medicaid, we all have to pitch on the bill for that. So we just really have to put specific insurance there. So, you know, if Take Care or Select Care or Stay Well or Net Care want to get on the bill that they can afford to give you an insurance premium that's affordable for you and for my patient. You know, just like the hyperbaric chamber, you know, it costs so much for one treatment that 20 treatment in PI will cost one treatment here. So it's just something that you have limitation there. I understand the insurance rather send the patient to the Philippines to get 20 treatment for one. You know, so it's something that you have to negotiate. You got to foresee. I think that input from the physician or input from the insurance company for the medical team, for your team to negotiate the price GRMC be very beneficial. Like I said, it's a long-term things. We changed, you know, we changed our support based on what we see in the past, you know, several years. You know, so, you know, like I said, we cannot stand in time and stand still. So as we see things change, we change our support. But like I say, you know, just make sure that my patient don't come to my clinic and cry, and that's the thing. You know, it's part of my family. Every patient.
I guess that's what I'm asking you, because the bills are identical from the last time and this time.
No, it's not.
And I'm wondering what you see in here that does that addresses your concern of capping the costs.
Yeah, it's because, like to say, this year, Gulf Guam decided to go with one insurance. I talked to my patient, and they say, you know, your employer going to give you one choice, right? And they say, they do? You know, they used to have multiple choice. They can pick whatever plan, what, you know, Take Care or Select Care, whatever insurance out there. But now they surprised when I say, no, you don't have one choice only. And I don't say, they scratch and say, wow, really? You know, they really not informed out there. So that's why, no, we support this bill. But like I said, I don't care which insurance have, you know, the Gulf Guam insurance, but make sure that they affordable.
Right.
Can I
That's
make
my point.
Can I make a point
Yes,
here?
please.
Dr. Nguyen, so currently there are choices of providers. You know, employees and retirees of the government of Guam can choose Take Care. One company, as you know, withdrew from the market, or of course choose Cowboy Select Care. Yeah, and to make a point, you know, our members don't come crying to you, do they?
They not complain about insurance. They just complain that now we have one.
No, they don't have one.
Yeah.
Today we have take care as a participant of the government of Guam. What you're saying is probably
in the
that
future,
bill,
yeah.
but I think also it's important. That's one of the reasons why I say the government of Guam should also amend that bill and allow choices to the employees and retirees, including choices of insurance companies. We said that even when we were the single provider, which, by the way, we never, ever were the single provider because we wanted to be. It's because other insurance companies withdrew from the market. But what we're saying on a going forward basis is the government of Guam should also give its employees and retirees choices of health insurance. So you may want to think about changing the, well, even that law is kind of vague because it's the most affordable and beneficial. Well, I ask to you, is beneficial not to include several of your health insurance providers in your plan or not? I think it would be very beneficial to include the SDA clinic, to include Dr. Burke in your plan, to include maybe possibly GRMC since they have so many. So all I'm asking is give choices to the employees and retirees.
Dr. Cabrera.
Hi. Thank you, Senator Tlahi. There's a couple points I just wanted to make very clear here. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Wen, who's here as an advocate for his patients. He's a business owner on the island, but he's really here and he's speaking genuinely on the interests of his patients. And myself, as the Chief Medical Officer for GRMC, my first responsibility first is as a physician and to my patients. And I think we can all agree that there's one main thing that we all want here, and that's high value, quality, sustainable healthcare delivery. And to do that, basically I always go to my triangle to help understand what are the three main important things you must do to ensure that delivery. And the first part of it is quality care, and we've achieved that through our accreditations and proven that way. It's access, and then the third part is cost containment. And I truly believe in all three of those parts, and they weigh equally. And to support what Dr. Wen and what Mr. Campillo is saying here is that, yes, I actually do agree that there should be oversight and on how these negotiations are done and that they're done in a financially responsible way that contains costs. I think that's critical. I would not be an advocate for my patients if I didn't agree with that. And so I think, and I can promise you here, under, I guess, the risk of perjury, that I would do everything in my effort to ensure that GRMC does that in good faith. Because in the end, that's what the patients need, and that's what they need to have access to this high-value, sustainable care. And if we don't do that, then we now destroy that access point for many patients. And that's just not fair, and that's not why I do my job. And so I think that's a clear, important part, that cost containment has to be a part of the conversation. And what Dr. Wen in particular really emphasizes, this oversight and accountability. I think there should be a transparent process, and I welcome that very much so, because in the end, if it means more patients come and get the care that they need, then everybody wins. And the last part I just wanted to make was the relationship with GMH. And as I mentioned earlier, I am a credentialed member of GMH's medical staff until this day. I firmly believe that both hospitals need to have and should have a symbiotic relationship, that one cannot survive without the other. And so having said that, when we talk about competition and available services, there's a third part here that we're missing here. And the third part that's missing is that if you take all our inpatient beds available on the island, combine both hospitals, combine all three hospitals in fact, and you take that to our population and use that ratio of beds to our population, if we were to compare that to the rest of our CMS Region 9, we are still 100 beds short on this island. That's another hospital. And so to think that you're going to limit access to 1/3 of what's necessary, I mean, that's just, competition doesn't even come into that question because of the necessity being so high, and that both hospitals are so necessary, and that patients must have access to both. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tlahi. Senator Muña?
Thank you. I apologize for being a little late here today. I didn't think I'd have a question, but this is just based on Dr. Wen's and Mr. Campillo's last statements. So it sounds like your testimony is better for choice then. So rather than amending this bill, Are you recommending that we just repeal the current law then for single provider? Or, I mean, can the choice be amended into this current bill, is what I'm saying?
Oh, so I truly, and even when we were the single provider by default, we many times said, we're only here by default, but choice is something that we welcome. We welcome competition, and I suggest that the government of Guam allows their employees, retirees, to choose, no different than the federal government does. And that's something that we owe. And as I said earlier, and you already include in your largest health insurance plan, which is called Medicaid. It's the largest health insurance plan on the island. You already include GRMC as your provider. So choice, give choice as you give your Medicaid and MIP individuals, as the taxpayers of Guam who ultimately paid for the cost of health insurance, the part of the employer cost of the government of Guam, as your taxpayers of Guam that today fully fund your MIP program are giving choice of providers, as you taxpayers of Guam that today are giving about 40 to 45% because of the contribution to the Medicaid program, to give choice is the same equal choice that we should give to the employees and retirees of the government of Guam. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Muña. With that being said, I'd like to extend my undunklinasi to Smasi for all of you being here for the confirmation for Mr. Danny Leon Guerrero for Bill number 23-35 COR and this bill, Bill number 30-35. I will note before we adjourn this session that if anybody else that is listening to this public hearing, if they'd like to submit written testimony again, they can do so by emailing speaker@guamlegislature.org or literally sending a hand-delivered note to us at the Speaker's Office, 163 Chalan Santo Papa, Hagåtña, Guam. It is now 4:57 and this meeting is adjourned. This public hearing is adjourned. Sainamasi.